eNCA's youth, Lindokuhle Xulu, but I'm giving you a different surname, Khumo as well as Lesego. Talking about the significance of Youth Day. Linda, let me come to you. Before the break, Lesego touched on something, which is the legacy of apartheid. In terms of where we are, we know that it was systematic, and some of the systems, we're still struggling to deal with them today. However, in the same breath, we've also had, some would say it's not even enough time in the 24 years that you were speaking about earlier to sort of get some of the things basics right for the youth?
I think it was never going to be an easy task to sort of dismantle the systems that were put in place for black people, particularly to, be inferior to white people, to our white counterparts. But at the end of the day, we need to actually acknowledge the fact that, yes, we were given, we did get the freedom, but we didn't do enough in this 24 years. We didn't do enough in a sense that we've had a lot of bumps on the way. We've had leaders who were controversial, and we focused so much on the leaders and their leadership, and we forgot about what they were supposed to do in the first place. I think 24 years is not necessarily a long time to dismantle such a well-thought-of system, a well-thought-of criminal system. But at the end of the day, I think what we need to also acknowledge is the fact that we really, really haven't done enough. We shouldn't be here.
future. I think it's been more the former, if you look at what's been happening in the country, where people want to pledge allegiance as opposed to really wanting to deliver. And I think that's one thing we need to discuss. Are we looking to pledge allegiance so we are good in so-and-so's books? Or do we have to look at what's happening in the country? And what's happening in the country is not good. We have to deal with gender-based violence. Where are the men, the young men that should be standing up against this? Do we write about this as musicians? Hardly. Children being abducted. I mean, it's been the most horrible time to be a woman and a child in the country. And you turn on the radio and everyone is having one big party. I'm not saying let it all be doom and gloom, but where do we reflect on where we need to improve? Because that is not the legacy of the likes of Sobukwe and Steve Biko for us to be destroying ourselves and each other.
We are the caretakers of the future. At which point do we take responsibility, and what legacy will the ones who are coming after us, the likes of your sister Lindo, what will they say that we did, Khumo?
You know, it's such a broad, perspective, because we're exposed globally to very different concepts, very different ideas. And I think because we are still unlearning and reprogramming the system with regards to what we know as South Africans, with regards to what we're actually capable of doing, and being exposed to people overseas doing more. And, as we reprogram and learn, unlearn, and learn and unlearn, we're actually trying to get to a point where we can be a success as the youth. So I don't think there's a majority of youth that is actually striving for better. There's a majority of youth that is actually trying to get out of the mud and the rut and trying to be existentially existent in a world that is currently surreal to your day-to-day realities. I think that's the keys, that we're trying to really embrace the fact that we're reprogramming a system that's already been in place. And that's just the important key of it all.
I think if I can just pick up from what Les was saying, your likes of Steve Biko, the former leaders, they were so pure in their quest for justice. Their fight was so pure that you don't see it these days. And I think it speaks volume to the saying that successful people, or people who are exposed to a little bit of success, usually turn their backs on those that aren't. But I think it's classically what we're seeing now. I'm not sure if it's a bad thing that we, are exposed to this success, the democracy that we are able to get. But at the end of the day, we can't ignore the change in our leaders. The pureness of their fight for justice and equality and equity is something that we don't see these days. And I think that's where we need to go back now and say, as you said, you can't run a relay and go back. I saw a video on social media of a child who actually goes back after they were leading. But it's that type of thing. And in its sense, it's funny. But when you look at it, it's tragic. It's tragic. It's tragic.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate your time this morning. And that was eNCA's youth, Lindokuhle Xulu. Lindo, why can't I get your name right? Multimedia producer Khumo, Pulumo, as well as musician and writer Lesego Muila. We take a short break. We're back with The Spotlight with Tanya Neft after this.